Hello, and welcome to the 2020 webinar series from Aculon. Today we're going to be doing a webinar called Ask the Experts, which allows you to ask as many questions as you want to our experts who are going to be on this panel today. My name is Edward Hughes. I'm the CEO of Aculon, and I've got an expert panel joining me today, Dr. Ericbrenner, who's the president of Aculon, Dr. Eric Hanson, who's our Vice President of Technology, and Gattuso, who's our Senior Business Development Manager. These gentlemen will be joining me to answer your questions later on in this brief presentation. From a logistical standpoint, it's going to be fairly straightforward. I'll give a 15-minute overview of Aculon, talking about some of the things that we do, and then I'm going to allow about 15 minutes of time for questions and answers. The event will be recorded, and this recording of it, link will be sent to you post this webinar today, as well as a PDF of the presentation. Again, this is going to be an interactive format. We will be asking questions of the panelists today, so please ask as many questions as you want. Utilize the question section of the GoToMeeting panel, so type the questions in. You can start doing that now if you have a specific question in mind, or at the end as we finish the quick overview. So as I say, I'm going to give you a quick overview of Aculon for those of you who don't know much about our company, talk a bit about some of the technology platforms we have, talk about some surface modification options that you may be interested in, and then leave plenty of time for questions and answers. So let me start with our goal. Our goal is to enable customers to make better products by being an innovative, responsive, and fast developer and producer of best-in-class surface modification technologies. We believe that by working together, we can create winning products. As a company, we are involved in many different fields, as you'll see from these images as they come up on your screen, whether it's consumer electronics, whether it's optical, whether it's medical device, whether it's oil and gas, industrial type applications, and other consumer products. We've looked at thousands of applications and have many, many different products that we treat today. Let me give you a quick overview of Aculon. We were founded in 2004. And the purpose of the company is really to develop and produce surface solutions to modify a broad variety of surfaces, whether it's metals, glass, polymers. We provide basically functionality to those surfaces by providing treatments that give you a hydrophobic or super hydrophobic or oleophobic, hydrophilic, anti-fingerprinting, or even in some cases we do some adhesion promotion work where we are boosting the adhesion between two different substrates. Our treatments are thin. They are easy to apply. We don't do anything in a vacuum chamber, so it's not a batch process. Often there's no cure involved. They can dry at room temperature. They are safe, non-toxic, and we offer a number of green options as well. How we differentiate ourselves is not only in creating proprietary innovative treatments, but really the willingness to work with customers to solve problems. I think as I look at our business and look at the customers we have, generally we've worked hard to solve their surface related issue, and as a result we've built a long-term relationship with that customer. And I think that's where we differentiate ourselves from, say, some of the large chemical companies that will probably provide you with more off-the-shelf type product and hope that it works for you. We have organized our business into three areas: electronics, oil and gas, and specialty. And specialty includes a number of applications, including medical and industrial applications as well. Our business model in general is we produce chemistry and then ship that chemistry to either to your facilities or to a contract manufacturing facility, and they apply the chemistry to the products or the devices. In some cases, if it's complex, we will treat the parts in-house, but the majority of our business is in supplying the chemistry. We have built up a pretty good portfolio of IP. Over 37 patents have been granted. We've worked on thousands of applications and invested hundreds of thousands of hours building up this surface modification expertise. And in doing so, we've built a large portfolio of products, over 100 products that we have. So we have many options to, as we think about treating different surfaces. Our people are smart, numerous chemists with PhDs, master's degrees, electrical and mechanical engineers, and these guys work hard to solve problems. We're based here in San Diego, California. This is where our headquarters is, our lab, main lab, and our manufacturing facility. We have offices in Shanghai, Singapore, Dallas, and Amsterdam. And we have a pretty extensive distributor network in Asia. So why did we build a business relating to surface modification? Well, surface modification basically matters, and surfaces matter because interaction with surfaces can cause a variety of problems. And I've got some examples of problems that, you could be experiencing or other customers have experienced. It could be a functional issue relating to a liquid behavior on the surface. It could be a cleaning issue. In that cleaning of the surface is very time consuming, expensive, and in some cases impossible. And so you're looking to protect it so you don't need to clean that surface. It could be that you've spent a lot of time designing a beautiful product and it's got great aesthetics, but then people's fingerprints or other surface contamination basically takes away from the aesthetics of that product. It could be water or oil impact the optical performance if you've got some optical properties, and that can be basically impacted by water or oil droplets sticking on that surface and changing the view. It could be other adhesive materials that you don't want to stick to the surface of whatever you've treated, basically are doing so. It could be the surface is not lubricious enough, or it could be if you're dealing with a powder or something like that, then maybe the wettability of the surface is not what you're looking for. In some cases, it could be the adhesion between the substrate and an adhesive is poor and you need a boost. Or, we do a lot of work in electronics. It could be that exposure to water basically results in the electronics failing. And in some cases, it could be that, a physical barrier to prevent liquid flow is not possible. So there's a pretty broad variety of things where surface issues come about. And so we've developed a set of technologies to address that. The original technology the company was founded on was basically something we call the self-assembled monolayer of phosphonates, so a SAMP. And the SAMP is it's comprised of a phosphonic acid and a repellent carbon-based molecule. And here you can see in the little schematic, basically the phosphonic acid reacts into the surface, into an oxide layer in this case, and creates a covalent bond. And then we're able to functionalize the tail to repel oils, water, flux, depending on what particular application you're dealing with. This particular treatment is a monolayer. It's less than 5 nanometers thick, so very, very thin. And it's proved to be a pretty versatile technology. As you can see, we're basically, again, we're bonding into that oxide layer, and that gives us the hook, which is a strong chemical bond. It's chemically resistant, it's thermally stable, and allows us then to functionalize the other end, the tail, to basically achieve a number of functionalities. So off that platform, which was the original for the company, the technology group and some of the people who are on this webinar today built a series of technologies around polymeric organometallics, transitional metal complexes, surface polymer growth, and a number of hydro and oleophilic treatments as well. And so what we do with that suite of technologies is we basically try to match the chemistry to the substrate. And so in the evaluation of a project, we'll be looking at what does the substrate need. So in some cases, we'll be looking at if it's metals or oxide containing surfaces. We have a variety of treatments that can create repellency or create adhesion or create a hydrophilic layer. And then even polymeric, non-oxide related surfaces, we have some options as well. So it's kind of we try to match the substrate requirement with a different type of chemistry to functionalize that. And in doing so, that's built a number of platforms all around the core concept of surface modification. So we now have a series of hydrophobic treatments, some adhesion promotion treatments, water barrier protection, oleophobic particle, anti-fingerprinting, and even hydrophilic treatments. So these provide kind of the areas that we have some expertise and a platform for that. So let me address kind of quickly each of these so you understand what it is we're talking about. When we're talking about a hydrophobic treatment, we're basically looking at modifying a surface such that it repels water. So you've changed the surface energy, so basically water and other liquids, don't stick to that surface. You measure that via a contact angle measurement, and you're trying to get, if you're looking for a hydrophobic, basically a contact angle above 100 degrees if you put a water droplet on that surface, or a super hydrophobic above 120 degrees. These treatments are optically clear. They're very, very thin, so they don't change the surface appearance. So if you're thinking about on stainless steel for an appliance or something like that, then you can keep the aesthetics the same. And they're pretty flexible in terms of we have a number of options for treating a variety of substrates: metal, glass, ceramics, polymers. When we talk about oleophobic treatments, we're basically predominantly designed to repel oils. Many of them will repel water as well, but basically keeps that surface, from being contaminated. And this is a slightly different measurement where we're measuring oil contact angles here, and so we're measuring it when you get above 60 degrees. It's described as oleophobic. Again, optically clear and pretty broad base of applications as well. When we talk about adhesion promotion, what we're trying to do here is basically improve the bonding between an adhesive and the substrate. So we're basically, it's not an adhesive in itself, but basically functionalizes that substrate to give it a boost in adhesive strength to reduce the failure mechanisms or the delamination. And in some cases allows for reduced thickness of adhesive to be go on it, because you've basically got a better bond. And again, we can do that on a pretty broad variety of substrates. Hydrophilic treatments is kind of the opposite of hydrophobic. Here it's water attracting, so you're basically changing and improving the water wetting, and you can see on the image on the right hand side, so an untreated, you'll see a water droplets just kind of sitting there, but on the left hand side it will wet out and shoot across the whole thing. So basically it becomes a water attracting situation, and in this case we're measuring water contact angles of less than 10 degrees when you get to the kind of hydrophilic. Again, optically clear and durable. And we do a lot of work with particles as well. Here we're changing the surface energy to basically achieve some desired performance. That can be done. It can be done. It's a fairly easy application. It's a liquid base where we can treat bulk treatments of particles. So it's a pretty scalable operation as well. And we can functionalize those particles to achieve, greater dispersion or whatever particular application or functionality you're looking for. So how we work with companies is our goal is to help you engineers hit your target. And so rather than just throwing something over the fence at you and saying, hey, try this, we prefer to go through a bit more of an in-depth process where we really try to understand the customer requirements. So we ask a lot of questions up front around what it is, what's the substrate, what the conditions the substrate is going to see, what is your current failure mechanisms, etc. So we can understand that. Then we'll basically often treat parts in our lab. We have an lab services business. We can analyze and characterize that. We'll provide then the parts back to you. The customer can test and provide feedback. If it hits the target straight away, great. If not, we'll optimize it. We'll tweak it to make it better, to try and achieve the functionality looking forward. And then that leads to us providing a selection and recommendation, not only in terms of the treatment, but in terms of the application process, which can then be tested at your plant trial. And if we've done our job and we've kind of met your requirements, then we help you hit the target. So as a company, we've built up a lot of IP and expertise in this. We've got a lot of patents. We've developed a number of trade secrets. But really the kind of what I call the soft IP is we've treated and tested thousands of applications, and it's that expertise, understanding what works and doesn't, that is really valuable to our customers. We have access through a partnership with University of California, San Diego, to millions of dollars of testing equipment for in the event that we have some testing that we cannot do in our lab, which you can see on the right hand side here. We have access to some pretty sophisticated university testing. But our team has spent hundreds of thousands of hours solving surface-related problems and building up that kind of institutional knowledge, and we've invested millions of dollars in building capabilities and expertise. We've also, want to be good stewards of the planet and offer our customers green options. A number of customers in the last few years have really been pushing this. And so we want to help them support their sustainability goals and obviously do the right thing by the environment. And so we have a suite of portfolios of products, whether they're VOC exempt. All our products are PFOA free. We use, eco packaging and waste reduction, try to be as efficient as we can on transportation. And even within our business ourselves, we try to use as much sustainable energy and efficiency as we can, to help everybody meet their goals. So in conclusion, we are a platform technology company that makes customers' products better. That's our goal. If we work together with you, we hope we can help you achieve that and make a better product. We are surface solutions experts. Everything we do is relating to modifying surfaces, and we provide solutions in terms of the treatments to do that. We have a strong history of working with customers to solve their problems, and in doing so, we've created a broad portfolio of products, including a number of more sustainable green options. And as a result, we have strong IP testing capabilities and in-house expertise. So with that, we're about on target with that. So let me introduce our panelists again. I have Eric Bruner and Eric Hanson and Mario Gattuso on the here. So let me open up the questions. So if you have questions, please type them into your question box. So, all right. So the first question is relating to durability. Maybe Eric Hanson, if you want to address this. So how do you measure durability? And I know we obviously do it in a variety of different fields. So let's start with maybe mechanical. So if something's going to get abraded on something, Eric, maybe you can talk a bit about how you measure durability.
Sure, no problem. It's very straightforward. Most of our abrasion durability testing is done with Tabor linear abrasors. It's basically a piece of equipment that just in a controlled fashion runs an abrading material, whatever it is, stainless steel wool or cloth or whatever the customer's expectation is. And we can run thousands and thousands of cycles if needed. We do that for our stencil coating business, where we need to run 80 to 100,000 cycle abrasion testing. And as we run it, we'll do contact angle goniometry for example, for our hydrophobic coatings, and just monitor changes in water and oil contact angles to assess how well it's performing.
Okay, great. And maybe the person who asked the question didn't ask the specifics of the application. Maybe you can talk a bit about when we think about durability for electronics. Obviously, we measure against IPX ratings. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that as well.
I'm sorry, what was the question? I thought it was about abrasion durability.
Well, he asked about durability. I don't know whether it's abrasion, but it could have been also for electronics. So maybe you just talk a bit about how we measure IPX ratings and those type of things.
Well, our measurement of IPX ratings is a bit different than what's typically done. IP ratings require enclosures. So you need to have a finished device. For our R&D purposes, or just for our validation purposes, QC, when we check our coatings, we actually run IPX8 testing here for our full immersion coating. So we'll actually coat some finished devices without a case, turn them on and submerge them in salt water. So we do that with some LED strips, and we also do just plain water immersion with finished Samsung devices, and ensure that they actually don't fail when they're immersed for 30 minutes running underwater. That's kind of how we run our IP testing. If it's IPX testing for a customer's part that maybe they don't need IPX7, they need a lower level, then we need to work with them with their finished devices.
Okay, great. Thank you. Eric Bruner, question for you. So, and this is kind of a broad question. How are the different solutions typically delivered and applied?
So most of our products are packaged into, liter, gallon, pail, or even sometimes drums. And so they'll be delivered in the container. Everything's liquid applied, so they'll be in some sort of carrier solvent. that's shipped to the customer, and then depending on the application method, whether it's dip, wipe, or spray, we'll provide technical support on how to do that. In some cases, we'll develop the methods here. Other times, we'll just work with the customer and their equipment and provide technical support.
Okay, great, thank you. Question for Eric Hanson. Do any of your coatings contain PFAS compounds, and perfluoroalkyl substances?
No, we haven't had any perfluorooctyl based compounds in our coatings since essentially the company started working with fluorocarbons, so that's a no.
Okay. Question for Eric. Bruner, do you make pad printable soft coats?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, for pad printing, typically you'll need higher viscosity formulations. We have delved into that. One of our nanoproof coatings that has really good oil and water repellency was formulated to be pad printable. So that's something we can explore if there's interest.
Okay, great. Question for Eric Hanson. You mentioned less than 5 nanometers. Are all your coatings less than 5 nanometers? So a question about thickness. Maybe you can give a little discussion about the different options we've got and thicknesses for the different types of treatments we have.
Yeah, the thickness ranges a lot. We do everything from coatings that are 2 nanometers all the way up to things that are 50 microns. It's completely application dependent. For a lot of the electronics-based waterproofing coatings, they tend to be in thicker range, 10, 30, 40 microns. A lot of our repellency treatments tend to be in the thinner range, in the nanometers. It really has a lot to do with the actual application and what's needed to solve the problem.
Okay, great. Question for Eric Bruner. How is your product superior to traditional Teflon's coatings of steel or stainless steel parts for each cleanup? As a coder of pressure-sensitive adhesives for label manufacturing, we need easy, quick cleanup when we change grades of adhesive. There you
go. That's an interesting question. So, yeah, there's a number of differences between our treatments and Teflon. Our treatments are much easier to apply, so they can be applied basically at room temperature in most cases by dipping, wiping, or spraying. We're not dealing with any sort of dispersion or plasma applications or high temperature type applications. So they're much easier to apply, usually thinner, and the composition's different. So we don't use any of the the PFOA or any of the types of surfactants that have been kind of banned. I know that some Teflons have gotten away from that, but we're definitely in a regulatory good space there. Steel itself is not a great substrate for us because it kind of tends to corrode. So we may want to think about a 2-layer approach or a different type of approach to first sort of passivate the steel and protect it from corroding. Thin coatings typically, don't always provide the necessary corrosion resistance for steel. And now if it's stainless steel, that's got a nice, corrosion-resistant chrome layer applied. So we can, apply on top of that and be in good shape. In terms of release against PSAs, that should be something we can definitely do. Repellency towards most of the silicones is something we can provide. We've got really good high oil oleophobicity or oil repellency. So that's something we can definitely look into and try to help you out with.
Okay, and Eric Bruner, I've got a follow-up question from the same attendee. He's asking essentially is compared to Teflon, would our wipe on or dipped or cured be as more or less durable on stainless steel than Teflon?
That's a good question. I mean, on stainless steel, we are very durable. We're as a thin coating, our kind of durability is usually sort of a function of the underlying substrate. So anything that you do that would abrade the underlying stainless steel or could chemically etch it, maybe a high caustic solution can remove or damage our coating. Teflon does have some advantages in that it's really thick, so you may be able to abrade some of it and still have something underneath. But as I alluded to earlier, there's a lot of advantages of using our technology. It can be also reapplied, so if you do see some sort of degradation, abrasion, or some sort of damage to our coating, it can be easily just sort of wipe applied and tuned back up without having to probably send the part out to another factory to be Teflon coated again. So I think there's regulatory and economic advantages and also just ease of use. Plus, in terms of oil repellency, our treatments can be very good, even better than Teflon towards oils. So be happy to work with them on that application.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I mean, we have a pretty decent sized portion of our business is basically treating metal for application where either Teflon didn't work or was too expensive and the process was too difficult or it didn't retain the edges, etc. So there's a number of reasons why people have switched over to our technology. So, Eric Hanson, I've got a follow-up question for you that you mentioned no octyl fluorochemicals. How about shorter chain PFASs?
So we don't have any sulfonates, no, but we do use fluorocarbon-based treatments. We tend to favor fluoroethers, but they have very short segments of the actual fluorinated segment.
Okay, and then Eric Hanson, another question for you. If your surface treats a metal oxide particle, does the Aculon coating have OH groups on the surface that are available for reacting and coupling to host resins?
Sure, we have a particular molecule that's been designed for that exact purpose. So it's phosphonic acid on one side, and then there's primary hydroxyl groups on the other one.
Okay, I have a question for Eric Bruner. Have you attempted inkjet printing patterns?
Absolutely. A lot of our nanoproof coatings are actually designed for kind of inkjet or jetting type applications. A lot of times it's a question on what type of nozzle, what the viscosity need is. So there may be some tuning that's necessary depending on the actual equipment. But we've done quite a bit of that, especially around patterning circuit boards with repellency treatments.
Okay, great. And Eric Bruner, another one for you. Sitendi says, we also use a variety of silicone and other release coating chemistries for making release liners on film and paper or patches of release coating on paper to which a pressure-sensitive adhesive label will be later applied. Is this an application for which your systems could potentially be used economically?
Sorry, did you say for me?
Eric.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. I didn't hear the last name. Yeah, that's something we can help with. In terms of treating paper, there has been some, in terms of EHS requirements, there has been some hurdles there. And a lot of times the coating needs to be non-flammable. So some of our cheaper hydrophobic treatments that are applied to paper are typically in some flammable solvents. We do have some non-flammable versions that could be used. They just cost a little more. So we'd have to get into some of the economics to make sure there's a good fit there. But in terms of technical capability, yes, we can coat paper and we can help provide release towards PSAs.
Okay, that's great. And somebody's asked, do we have scratch-resistant hard coats? So Eric Bruner, you want to take that one?
That's not an area that we've done a lot with. We do have some formulations that can be used on polycarbonate. some hard coats that can provide scratch resistance towards some of the softer plastics like polycarbonate. We've worked especially on the hard coats where we're actually modifying the top of them and making them hydrophobic and oleophobic. Hard coats are kind of an older chemistry, but there are some formulations that we have that can be used and have been used for things like sunglasses and prescription eyewear. So depending on what the substrate is and what they're looking for, we may or may not be able to help them.
Yep. And I think we've also seen with some customers that, you know, as we've changed their surface functionality, if it's a metal and made it more lubricious, then the chances of something scratching into it is less. Obviously, if you go ahead and just, you know, apply a nail to a surface and try to dig into it, then that may be an issue. But, you know, with lubricity, it allows the more of a glancing blow to take place. Okay, question for Eric Hanson. You have hydrophilics in your portfolio. Can you talk more about the types of chemistries you use for that?
I'd say we have 3 basic classes. The one we probably use the most is one that our code is LN470 for that material, but it's a one-step application. It's hydrolytically resistant. It's a thin film. It's usually somewhere in the hundreds of nanometers range. Not meant for abrasive conditions, but it's great for metals, metal oxides, and a lot of different polymers. And it will retain its hydrophilicity upon immersion, essentially indefinitely on a lot of the different surfaces that we've tried. So it's great for applications where people want a lot of cases a polymer of some kind, but metal and metal oxides are fine as well to remain hydrophilic under constant immersion conditions. So that's the first one. The second one is one that's a bit special. It's meant for metals and metal oxides, where someone wants a very thin, invisible hydrophilic film. Again, one that sticks around for a long time, where we actually do a surface-initiated polymerization reaction to make a thin sort of polymer film on metals and metal oxides. The third one is a thicker coating. It's more along the lines of like a hydrophilic hard coat. People will use that a lot of times for polycarbonate and sometimes polyacrylic resins to give some hydrophilicity. Intermittent hydrophilicity is not meant for continuous immersion, and as well as giving some scratch protection to plastics.
Okay, great. And Ericbrenner, so question for you. Can you make a PC/ABS more lubricious? I'm assuming that's polycarbonate or ABS more lubricious.
Yeah, we can help with that. We have some class of compounds we call transition metal complexates, which use essentially a polymer and an organometallic binder that bonds to the polymer in itself as well as surfaces, and they tend to be very, very slippery. They provide nice lubricity and are a little better in a lot of cases than sort of your traditional lubricants, which can just easily sort of slough off that have no bonding. So that's definitely something we could try to help with.
Okay, great. And I think that looks like I think we covered all the questions here. So thank you, Eric, and Mario for joining me today, and thank everybody for listening in. So as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, we will be sending an email to all the registered attendees, which will have a link for downloading the PowerPoint presentation, as well as a link to the recording of this. So in the event that a colleague of yours was unable to attend, or you feel like they should listen to this, then you can obviously forward those respective links with that. So with that, I want to thank you. Hopefully we can help you make your products better and work to solve whatever surface-related issues that you're having. So with that, thank you very much.